Yeah, a lot of interesting things we learned from yesterday. We were joking earlier that this was what we expected. We expected both President Trump and President Biden to win their primaries handily, and they both did. Turnout was about what we expected overall. I expected it to be a little lower than it was. Republicans turned out at about 41%, Democrats in the low 30s. An average, I think, was 36 or 35% turnout. And I think because the races have been decided, that we already know that these two men will be the candidates for their parties, there wasn't a lot of excitement other than people that wanted to have their voices heard. So there were a lot of people that didn't vote yesterday just because it had already been decided. But I think we're going to see a much bigger turnout for the primary in August and for the general in November. I think this will be another time where we see a big turnout, unless, of course, the independent voters in Arizona decide to sit it out. If they are unhappy with both candidates, and there has been 30%, and this number is one that everyone should be watching. I think the two political parties have become tone deaf in a lot of ways. The Republicans, 36% of people, not the Republicans, I should say, voters said 36% believe Donald Trump is better equipped when the choices are Biden and Trump to run the country. 33% said it's Joe Biden, but 30% of voters said neither. When given that option of neither, 30%, almost a third of voters are still saying neither. Will that frustration boil over? How will this campaign go? You know, there is a possibility that you're going to turn voters off across the board if both of the candidates do not look appealing. And what is happening, President Biden is in Arizona. We just heard we're covering this. He will be out at Intel, at one of the Intel locations. He's going to announce a big $8.5 billion grant to Intel. Congratulations to Intel. There's going to be another, I think, $11 billion in loans. So this is a big investment into the tech industry, to the chip industry, along with TSMC in the North Valley. Arizona is becoming a hub for this industry and the feeder industries that it's going to create. That's the other part of this that other people I've talked to in other places, you don't understand that when you have major multi-billion-dollar companies like this that do what they do here, you see other industries that pop up that feed them, and that creates an industry in and of itself. So that's great for job creation in the state of Arizona. When we're going to talk more when we talk specifically about the economy. But when you look at this race, not just for the presidency, but we've got a very important Senate race. There's been a recent poll out. As a matter of fact, let me find that. This morning we played a little bit of it. The races here in Arizona, which candidates are leading here in Arizona? This is Jim Cross reporting.
The Emerson College poll has Trump ahead of Biden 48 to 44%, with 8% undecided. In the Senate race, Democrat Ruben Gallego leading Republican Kerry Lake 44 to 40%, 16% undecided. And the poll found immigration the top issue for Arizona voters, followed by the economy.
Now, this seems like it would be an anomaly, and I don't know what this fracturing means. At least polling now, and it's so early, things are going to change quite a bit between now and November. And the Lake campaign is about 4 points behind, according to these polls, behind Ruben Gallego. But in Arizona, President Trump is winning by 4 points over Joe Biden. You would think, at least it would seem to me, that as much as they have been connected together, that if one were winning, both would win. And I don't know the reasoning behind that. If it's even going to stay this way, it's going to change dramatically. But if you remember going back to when Senator Sinema won the Senate race, Senator Sinema won that, and she was a Democrat then before she became an independent. Senator Sinema won by a fairly large margin in that Senate race. At the same time, our Republican Governor Doug Ducey won by a very large margin the governor's office. So we have shown in the past where there's some independence when it comes to specific offices that you don't see the parties anymore voting straight down the ticket. That is in large part due to those independent voters. Now, the independent voters sat it out yesterday. They were not eligible. If you were a party non-declared voter, you couldn't vote, or any other party. You had to be a Republican to vote yesterday for the Republican candidates. You had to be a Democrat to vote for the Democrats. But that will change. Coming up in August for the primary, you will be able to choose which one of the two parties as a party non-declared. You can go to the polls or you can get a mail-in ballot. You don't have to change your party. You just can tell the elections office, if you live here in Maricopa County, you can tell them, I want a Republican ballot or a Democrat ballot to vote in the primary. Obviously, we all have the same ballot in November in the general. And so I think we're going to see changes there. This is, I think, why you are seeing that it's not, if the top of the ticket wins, it bodes very well for everybody down ticket. So the issues, and this is interesting as well. Jim Cross talking about what the big issues are for voters in Arizona.
The Emerson College poll found immigration the top concern for voters at 32% in Arizona, the economy 22%. In the U.S. Senate race, voters who list immigration as their top issue break for Republican Kari Lake over Democrat Ruben Gallego 77 to 12%. Voters who say the economy is their top issue give Gallego a 43-38% advantage over Lake.
So that is a huge difference when it comes to the border. When you look at that Senate race, if Kari Lake can make this about the border issue, there is no doubt she is far and away more popular with the handling of the border issue. If that remains the number one issue, how do you overcome that? This is what happens behind the scenes. The economy is also very important here in the state of Arizona, which is why the President of the United States is here today to announce this huge investment in Intel, trying to take the economy being the number one issue in Arizona and not the border issue. These issues are going to be what leads, I think, whoever wins this race. If you look nationally at the polls, you see a 2-point lead in one poll for Biden, a 4-point lead over here like this latest Emerson College poll for Trump. Within the margin of error, maybe a dead heat. You got to factor in the court cases that are still set to be resolved. You've got the Hunter Biden stuff that's still going on Capitol Hill as somebody is testifying about his business dealings. But in the end, let's just say that the opinions about the individuals running stay the same. We all understand, as voters, we understand the baggage that comes with electing Donald Trump, and we understand the baggage that comes with electing Joe Biden. Let's say the American people, all things being equal, staying exactly like they are right now, people's opinions don't swing one way or the other about the quality of the individual. Which of these two have a resume that the American people believe in more? There is a chance that independent voters, frustrated as they have been, will vote for none of the above. That will either sit it out or not fill that in or write in a candidate because they are trying to send a message. When I say the parties are fractured, this is what I mean by the parties being fractured. The parties here in Arizona I think are doing what they do in a primary process or in a presidential preference process. They are talking to their party only. But now that's over. They had better start right now reaching out to independent voters and explaining to independent voters why their party's platform is best for this country in November and in August in the primary process. They better start doing it now, because the party here in Arizona, especially in Maricopa County, that speaks best to the independent voters is going to win the races. That's how it's going to go, and you can look at the numbers, and that's exactly what it explains.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Tap to watch and listen to the new season of Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast. You can also click the button in the middle to subscribe.